Welcome to week 2 of the Q&A. I'm OP, one of the developers. There's a couple other developers in the chat, Kyle and Blue. They're not answering questions, but they're here. So thank you guys for tuning in. I guess the first thing we'll do is we'll just start reading off questions, and then just like last time, I'll take a couple questions afterwards, just on the spot. So I've prepared answers for these questions, and yeah, so let's get going. Which plugins or plugin have you guys developed that was the most difficult to program, and why? So most of the plugins that the developers work on, the developers pretty much work on themselves, so it's not really like a difficulty thing, it's just time. But where it gets hard is when somebody else develops a plugin and then we have to go in and try to figure out what they were thinking when they were programming it and fix bugs or find the things that aren't just right there clear to your face. So unfamiliarity is what makes fixing plugins hard. So working on things ourselves really isn't too
Mic
big of a
off.
deal, but it's when we're working on other people's stuff that it's a little harder. Is there any merit to the claim that people are likely to get hacked or have their passwords leaked? Many people have been feeling this towards this client, and I'm trying to convince them otherwise. Well, I appreciate you trying to convince them otherwise, but it really shouldn't be a problem because I stated this last week, and I think Kyle touched on it too. We don't actually store or send anything to our servers. Nothing. So even worst case is if somehow there was a way to leak passwords, it would never be sent to a server. So having said that, there's literally zero risk. On top of that, anything that we do push is right from the GitHub. So you can see literally every commit, every change. If you're worried about it, just go look at all of the there's a dev log or a log for the GitHub as to all of the changes that get pushed, and it gets streamed right to the Discord. So you can take a look at that channel and stay live on what's being changed. So yeah, there's no reason to worry about that. Everything that does get PR'd, pull requests, we check and we check it again, and we make sure that nothing malicious can get in, and we make sure that that's a top priority, because that would ruin a lot of stuff, and we don't want our hard work going to waste. We don't spend hours and hours working on stuff just for it to, get ruined by one person doing something naughty. So yeah, the only chance that there would be an issue, like I mentioned last time, is the externals. Don't download externals if you don't know where they're coming from. Don't run anything. If you were questioning if something's an issue, just message me, and I'll always be happy to give the external a look and make sure that there's nothing malicious. I'm happy to do that for anyone who's concerned. All right, next question. Would it be possible to have another way to pin our favorite plugins to the top? I feel that the favorite right now is enough. Just the star on the config panel is enough. We don't want to add too many things that are similar, because then it ends up being bloat and the client gets heavier, and it's just not worth it. So for now, you'll just have to deal with that. Many people use this client for external plugins. What are the chances of external plugins being removed in the future due to the pressure from jagex or any other source? I'm worried that if people whine enough about it, they'll get it removed. External plugins, which are like 98% of the reason I use this client. So besides public statements, we actually haven't really had any pressure from jagex to remove externals specifically. There was an announcement where we stated that there's no tolerance for talk of externals or anything that's potentially used to break the compliance in our Discord itself. So we're going to continue with that. And if people can't listen to that, if they want to keep coming in here and making our client seem like we're supportive of that kind of thing, uh, then we're going to have to make some changes. But how it stands is we don't want to stop people from having the ability to use things if they so choose. We just don't. We're not in the position where we can say yes, use them. No, don't use them. That's why there is the external system, so we can give you guys the choice, not limit people, but also not enable people. So it really comes up to you to make decisions properly. So it was mentioned in the previous Q&A, you might make a tutorial on getting started with development. Are there any updates on that? So that's just a matter of getting the technologies in place and just creating a workflow for that. All of the devs are pretty busy with IRL stuff and then just working on the client, working on personal projects. A lot of us, this is a hobby. So preparing and getting ready for making extra content on the side is just something that's going to be like it is a priority, but it's not the first priority. So when we have time to, you'll see them very hopefully soon. um, what would make OPRS stand out from the already approved trusted Runelite client? And will plugins like the Zulver Helper, Demonic Gorillas, Raids, and so on be taken out of the client? I would hate for this to become another Runelite clone with the same plugins. I want everyone to listen carefully to this answer because uh, this is something that just is reoccurring in the support in all of the channels. This is just something that goes on and on and on. So the plugins that you guys that this was mentioned are already out of the client. They've been out for months. Um, we don't we're not in competition with Runelite. So when you guys say things like, well, what makes you different than Runelite? Well, if you don't add those, then you're just Runelite. Like if you want to use Runelite, that's okay. We're not in any competition with them, but we do want you guys to use and enjoy our client. But using that as leverage to make us want to keep the overpowered stuff in and whatever, like that needs to stop because we're not getting paid to do these things for you guys. This is all completely voluntary of all of the developers. So we're doing our best to give you guys the plugins that you need and want and give you outlets for them. We don't plan to make any changes to how we've been running unless we have to. So take that as you will. But yeah, this is one of those questions that gets asked day in and day out. Like, how are you guys going to be different if you do remove the non-compliant stuff? Well, guess it's just going to see how it plays out, but we don't have plans to make any changes at the moment, so hang in there. What separates OPRS from Runelite now that the gray area plugins are no longer part of it? Also, what happened to make OPRS take the direction and take those plugins away? I've been out of the loop for a while. So I think I covered that pretty well just a moment ago with the last question. But as to what happened, Jagex released a statement about third-party clients and gave us an outline of what is and isn't allowed. So we made the appropriate steps to get it out of the client, the stock client, that is, and we made those steps because we had to, and we want to make sure that we're able to keep doing what we're doing. Why is compliancy such a major concern publicly for this client when its developers have external GitHubs in which every single plugin that was originally considered blacklisted or non-developer GitHubs which others can access? It seems counterintuitive to the end goal, especially when everybody knows about it and the general understanding is that the client supports it, though it's not handled. So I'm going to answer this question because we are transparent with you guys. I have nothing to hide, and I don't think anybody in the development team thinks that we should just avoid questions like this. So compliancy is a major concern because it has to be, and we don't want to lose what we've built. The external repositories that are not associated with OPRS, aka they don't come stock with the client, if you choose to download them, then you're putting it into your own hands. Uh, if you choose to take those plugins and use them, and then something were to happen, say they're from some random guy and he makes a plugin and you download it and use it and your account gets banned. That's something that we hate to see, but we're trying to make it clear that that's something that you do need to look out for. There's things that people can add to plugins that will get you banned. So having said that, you need to make sure that the people that you're accepting these plugins from are have your interests in mind. So I don't want to spend too much more time on compliancy because that's what these Q&As have really been mostly about. And I think that it's not fair to other users who have other questions besides the compliance thing. So for the next Q&A, I'm not going to answer any questions regarding compliancy unless it's completely relevant to something going on. So that's enough. We have to do what we have to do, and we're doing our best to do that. So you guys are just going to have to hang in there and accept what we've got. How much work is it, or how much time do you put into an update for the client when OSRS gets updated? So this is a cool question because a lot of people don't really realize that we do have to update the client every time that OSRS updates, and we do need to keep up with that stuff. But we do have a pretty streamlined process. It normally doesn't take too long. But we always put in our efforts to do so. We've had developers who are sick or on vacation, but they still make time to get on and make sure everything's going well. So I don't really know where we found all of our developers, but I have nothing but respect for what we're able to accomplish week in and week out. So it's streamlined, but there are some things that we normally have to deal with each update. So it can take anywhere from 20 minutes to a couple of hours. It really depends. Is there a plan to keep feature parity with Runelite? I have noticed that a few plugins have drifted away, even ones with the same names. Is it the intention to keep parity, or do the devs plan on similar plugins but in their own way, in addition to the OPRS ones only? So we do try to keep parity. We do still pull upstream. We try to make sure that anything that's coming in is a positive addition. So we don't just like, okay, well, Runelite did it, so we're gonna do it. We do try to do what we can there, but not every feature and not every plugin. But parity is a good word. We do try to keep it somewhat paired. So that's it for the questions that I've prepared answers for. I'm going to go ahead and look in the Q&A now. Looks like there was a couple of questions that I didn't get to look at yet. So let's take a look at that. Just reading through a couple here. Okay. What do you get out of running or making OPRS? This question was from AFK is good. Appreciate your question there. So what do we get from it? Well, we do have a Patreon, and pretty much Null it takes over the Patreon to keep up with whatever things that we need for the client. So like if something comes up and we need a server or we need whatever it may be, we have that. But besides that, we really just get experience handling volumes of people. It's good development experience. It's really all about the experience and community aspects of it. It's really rewarding when we're able to push out something that we've been working towards and see that people are enjoying it. And it's really interesting to see when we push out something that people don't like and getting the backlash and learning from that. So we really just get experience, and we really get gratification from ourselves and the other developers when we're able to accomplish something. Swaz asks, could this process of updating the client when the game updates be documented anywhere? I would be happy to do it. I am familiar with most of the technical details, decompiling, deobfuscation, etc. But I would need someone to answer my questions and explain some stuff. So documenting that specific part, I'm not sure that's something that we're gonna be able to do. Just as far as like, I don't know if Jagex would like that. I don't know, the deals with that. But if we can do that, I'll talk to the other developers and see where they stand on it. If we can, possibly we will. But outside of that, you can always come to me, Swaz, and I can help you out with any questions that you have if I can answer them. And that's true with a lot of the developers. So we're happy that you're looking to help out with stuff like that, and definitely something that we want to get you involved in if you're interested. So yep, we'll go in the next question. Is there any way to add different colored hit splats? Yeah, we could. Just how we go about doing that, or is that something that we add to the API to be able to handle, or is that a specific plugin that we add? That's the only thing, is how we implement that, and in what case do we implement that. So off the top of my head, I don't really see a use, but I'm sure there are uses for it. So if you can come up with one and it's a good suggestion, then maybe. Any updates? So this is a lot of questions on the mobile stuff. So Null and Kyle Escobar were primarily working on the mobile stuff. I'm not too familiar with it. I don't think that development has halted. I think that it's still being developed, just not as quick as it was when it was first started. There's a lot that goes into a port like that, so that's kind of where we're at with that one. I'll get more information for next week's Q&A, and I'll make a follow up on that. I'll note it, and we can get some better answers for you. Yep, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow, or if somebody can swap over or actually I think last week we went into the general voice channel. So we can go ahead and jump into the general voice channel. And if you guys have any questions that you want to say over mic, just please try to be respectful to other people in their questions. So I'll see you in the general.
Anime. Fuck
I
you,
don't
Kyle.
I don't think Kyle's answering questions right now, but
I can answer that. Anime is a scourge upon this earth and should be removed.
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I do just want to thank all the devs for all your hard work. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate that comment, and I'm sure all the other developers do. Like I said before, a lot of this is just purely just our free time and any time that we can force to get stuff out to you guys and continue to maintain it. So that's
Absolutely.
the best thing that we can hear is just the gratitude. That's all we want. We just want to make sure that we're giving you guys something that you guys are enjoying and that we can be proud of. So
And
thank
you
you.
know what? You spending your free time to make this client is helping all of us spend our free time in a much more enjoyable way. So like for real, I really do. I appreciate it. Extra shout out. I think your name is Owain. Dude, your shit is
Mic on.
Yeah, Owain is a beast, dude. Like I honestly can say, like, when I came into this community, Owain, I definitely I somewhat idolized Owain. He's always pushing out stuff. He's always working. He doesn't spend a lot of time just on the politics of OPRS like some of us do. He spends a lot of time, getting the things done that need to get done. So he's really, really, really helpful. Without him, the client probably would not be where it is today. So we definitely do appreciate Owain.
Yeah, Owen.
Are there any other questions?
Okay, now I do have a question. Oh wait, sorry. Never mind. I just remembered you're not allowed to talk about externals.
You can ask it as long as it's not something that you think that will be, too bad.
You stop me if I have to.
Okay.
Or if you have to. I was going to ask if there is a master list of different repositories that are public or anything like that.
A master list? No, there is no current master list of repositories. We were talking recently, actually, and we were thinking about that as, if we are going to allow these external repositories, maybe we need to monitor them and see which ones we want on an official list of acceptable or things that we can endorse. That way it's not pointless to have that feature of having repositories, because we do want to be able to promote developers and have people feel good when they do make a contribution. So right now it's kind of like you make a contribution and it gets added externally, and then half of the people don't even know it's there because it just gets added to the repo. So maybe there's a way to combine your question with a solution where we can celebrate people who are creating things, and maybe they want to keep it all in their name in one repository, and we're okay with that. We probably, if it's all compliant and good, we'd be okay with just allowing certain repositories. But again, there would have to be some sort of certification where if they add something before it gets automatically added to the client, it gets viewed, because again, it's security is the most important aspect, and we want to make sure your accounts are safe. So
Sure.
I have a question. How come, back on the repository thing, I feel like I'm not saying this is 100% true, but it feels like Open was at the forefront of pushing externals, and now it's all of a sudden almost not allowed. Are you guys being paid, or what is the goal for you to backtrack so much from what the client originally was?
I think it's just maturity as a client. When we're first starting out, it's obviously more appealable to people when we have all of these things that are just readily available. And I think as we've matured as a client and got the feedback from the community, the backlash, outside of this community, most people in this community are happy with the way that the things are, but there's a huge community outside of it that's very unhappy with the way that the things are in our client or were. So we're working towards a way to meet somewhere in the middle where we have the availability for people who can and want to develop whatever they want to. and not feel like we're pressuring them against it. But we also need to make sure that our base stock client is kept in a manner that's appropriate for jagex and appropriate for everybody to just download and use right out of the box. So any externals, I can't endorse them is what I'm saying. I'm not saying I don't want you to use them. That's your choice is what that's the biggest point, is that it's your choice if you want to use them. And I want you to have that choice, and that's why we're doing it this way. It's not that we're trying to discourage it. We're trying to discourage the idea that it's not our choice or not your choice. So that's pretty much the best answer I can give to that.
That's cool.
Okay. Owain asks, which developer has made the most oopsies? So the most oopsies, I'm not sure who's made the most oopsies, but definitely a funny story that you guys might not know. For a day, our OPRS repository was completely gone. We had no trace of it. We had nothing, no backup. Well, we did have a backup, but it's more dramatic if I say we don't. No backup. So yeah, and that's because Stonewall accidentally did some sort of something with his branches and somehow deleted the whole repository. So that was a pretty funny day. We had to contact GitHub personally and get that sorted out. That was very interesting. All of our GitHub actions, and yeah, it was a mess, but that was the biggest oopsie. I don't know the most oopsies. I'm guessing it'll be me at some point. But that's to be had. Are there any other questions?
Do you personally, and you also don't have to answer this, do you personally use external plugins that may or may not be approved?
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a good question. Personally, my personal choice, in the past, yes, I have. I don't really play the game that much. I don't have a lot of time. But if I were to load up OPRS, I have multiple repositories linked, and that's my choice. I've had so if any actions were to be taken against me specifically for that, if I was using something that's not allowed, and that would be my choice that I did that. But yes, I do.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Is it true that... No, go on. After you.
So kind of to extend my question earlier about the compliancy, I know you want to minimize the compliancy discussion on it, but with that, the question is really pertaining to the concept of, if you want your overall client to be compliant with the jagex and what their requests or aspects of what they allow clients that are third party to do, sort of offer to their end users. The biggest thing is, if you want compliancy, how do you expect to be fully compliant when you have external access that you can connect to a GitHub repo? So for example, like Runelite has access to external plugins, but they're all restricted, and they all have to be limited on what can kind of be produced, and they restrict the ability to add and remove different plugins how they see fit. Now, yes, it is somebody's option to use or not use a plugin that may or may not break the guidelines of what jagex expects people to keep within third-party clients. But how do you expect the client to be completely compliant across the board when you have something that allows other things to just be added in left and right that essentially break the guidelines that jagex gives you?
Yep, and the reason I think that I don't want to touch on it too much is because it's such like a icy field, like there's so much that goes into finding the proper solution to this, because I don't think that the solution where we just yoink everything out of the API that can be used to create plugins, or an idea that we have to approve every single plugin that developers or non-developers or just people looking to have some experience working with RuneScape. I don't think that's the proper solution to just say no, you guys can't do that. We come from an open source background. This project is open source. We support people tinkering. We don't support people cheating. We don't support people botting. We're not a bot client. But when it comes down to programming, and as we are as developers, it's a way to learn. It's a way to experience and really understand the game. So if we take those aspects away, then we're doing less justice than we are if we just keep them in and do our best. Is what I think. So yes, I know it's difficult to say, oh, we are compliant, or yes, we're doing everything in our power. We're doing the best we can with everything that we have. I don't think that there's a right answer that can be had in a short amount of time. So we're constantly working through that.
So I guess my kind of like playing devil's advocate with it, right? Because obviously everyone that works on development for OPRS or even like Runelite, for example, or even other clients that they dabble in, anybody can tinker with the project. But as far as making it mass accessible to the general public is probably the biggest concern. So for example, like even if you were a Runelite developer, you can make anything you'd want with the API that they give you access to, and you could use it personally, or you could even create a jar and give it to a few friends. But that obviously lessens the scale of mass accessibility for everyone to use. Now you can create whatever you want, regardless of externals, external repositories being accessible. So I mean, it's just kind of contradictory in a way, because it's one of those things where the reason that clients get so much compliance issues is the fact that whenever it's mass accessible for things that are, so game altering is kind of where that concern comes in. So that's where I'm just kind of trying to get an idea of how you stand on it. Obviously it is everyone's choice to use something. If they get banned, they get banned. But if you're trying to go for overall client compliance, I mean, I personally think you guys have got a long way to go, just because of the fact that anybody can add anything that is game breaking through your client, and it, to extent that Runelite can't, or even other clients.
So to answer, just to touch on something you said, is that you said that somebody can add anything that they want. As it stands, we are fully compliant. We do not have anything in our base downloadable OPRS client. And I know that's not the answer you want to hear. And I know you are playing devil's advocate here. So I understand your points, but we are fully compliant, and we are doing that for a reason. Now, Runelite's API is a little bit different than our API. So what you can accomplish on Runelite and what you can accomplish on our client is different. And like I've mentioned, that's something that is, it's there for those developers who want to take it there and be out of our hands. We purposely have that there so that, if somebody wants to come in and develop, the first thing we want them to do is nothing that is relatable to non-compliant things. We want them to explore, learn, make some little helper sort of plugins and, get familiar with it. Now, those developers who take it the next step and would be doing these things regardless if we have those in our API or not, then, why make it harder why limit what people can do at the cost of somebody downloading and using a plugin that they know is probably not compliant and is wrong? It's not in our hands anymore. That's why the external system, and I know it makes it more accessible, but it also takes it out of our hands.
I think what he's trying to say is your client's the only client that allows somebody to actually be able to make something that's against the game rules and use
Not,
it in game.
not necessarily at all.
But
Similar.
There's always
But the
been
thing
third-party
is-
clients.
Sorry,
Let's keep
I was
the
just gonna
keep the discussion at a minimal and just let me respond to things because I don't want any views or opinions to be representing our opinions. So just let me answer the questions and let everybody have a fair chance to ask their concerns or questions.
I have a question for you then. My understanding of this project is that you really just wanted an open source client that, and this may be just repeating what you just said, but the main point was to have an open source client that devs could use, while there's going to be people who aren't devs that use it, but like, I guess your primary target would be devs. And so that is why you have the external plugin loader. And so, like, let's say I am a new coder and I wanted to make my own plugin. Like, I could link my own GitHub to the client. Now, it doesn't matter if I make stuff that's like compliant or non-compliant, but you're giving me the option and the choice to at least try and develop things. Is that correct? Like, it's not
for
necessarily.
us, it's not about compliant or not compliant. We are simply, it's one thing that is considered compliant versus another thing that's not considered compliant on an API level is the same thing for us when we're porting it. So it's not about is it compliant or not. We are giving you a full tool as a developer. We are giving you a full toolbox. Now, when you start building things, should you go ahead and grab the huge power saw and start using it? No, you shouldn't. You should grab the handsaw and learn how to cut things. Now, that's the idea that we have, is that we want the full wood shop to be here, but we also want people to respect the tools, we don't want people coming into our client and being like, oh, nice, we can make bots on here, or oh, nice, we can make things that are, non-compliant and get away with it. We don't want that. That's not the message that we're trying to achieve. And if we are achieving that message, then that's why we're having these Q&As. That's why we're talking about these things, so that we can figure out a solution to that without it being the solution. Oh, just, get it out of there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wasn't focused on the compliance part, just the whole, you're giving us an option to develop things if we wanted to, and it's not necessarily that this client is meant for botting or non like, I know I'm not trying to focus on the compliance thing, but this client isn't meant to focus on non-compliance or compliance stuff. It's mostly just for developing, and then it also happens to allow for other things.
It's for users, it's for developers. It's we have a section in here. If you look through the sections in our Discord, we have a section for development people, we have a section for general chat, we have we don't target any specific audience. I think that the thing is, we want to make a well-rounded client where everybody can enjoy it. But I see your point. I see what you're trying to say. It's just not really where it's not lining up with what our values are. We don't specifically be like, okay, well, this client's for developers and anyone who develops should come here because we give you all the tools or anything like that. It's just that those are maybe some of our values, but it really extends beyond that. We enjoy the people using these things too, more than just developing with it. All right, next
thank you.
question. Yeah, no problem.
I've been trying to get my friends on Open for a while, but they consider that they call it like, oh, it's that shady client. Has there ever been a data breach or a like leaked passwords, or is that just all baseless rumor?
Yep. So I touched on this earlier, but so to leak something, it has to be in a container, and we don't have that container. So there's no spot where we take in your passwords. There's no spot where it's all protocol, right? Like when you log into the game, it doesn't get recorded on our client. The only place that it is recorded is maybe our account manager plugin, and that's all stored locally. So there's no there's no area where it could get leaked. So to answer that, yes, it's all just so one person said something and then somebody believed it and said it to the next and so on. But there is no no way that could happen, and we do check everything that gets pushed, and all of the developers are very vigilant about making sure that security is first. That's always been, priority. If we're going to maintain a client, has to be secure first, no matter what. I'll take one more question, and then I'm going to call it there.
At what point does Jagex's oversight and I don't know?
You cut out.
At what point does Jagex's oversight begin to infringe on what your core purpose of the is?
So we take Jagex very seriously, as much as we haven't had much direct conversation with them. What they say is very important to us. We read all of their announcements about things, and we really do want to be in a position where we can coexist with them, and we want to make sure that if they ask something of us, that they feel like we're gonna do it. I know that stinks for everybody who is a user and wants the client to remain as it is, but at the end of the day, like we said, we're not even earning income from this. We're doing this, we're not going to put our lives or anything in jeopardy to make it so you guys can have whatever it may be that Jagex would want us to remove or whatever. So the oversight of Jagex is really important to us, and I think that we will remain to make sure that we are following their guidelines, and if they did come to us with a specific need, we would make sure that they're accommodated for that. That's my specific opinion. I haven't had a chance to talk to all of the developers, but I'm pretty sure that that's the stance that we would take on that.
And then a really quick follow-up to that. Do you have anything in plan of the if Jagex were? Do you have anything in plan for the longevity of the if Jagex does say that we don't want it to be open source?
I don't think that Jagex will say that they don't want it to be open source. I think that it's better for them if it is open source. Users are more safe. Generally, things are normally better for companies when things are open source. But if they did say, like Runelite or whatever, that we did need to close some things down, is there a plan? I guess we'd have to roll with the punches on that one. We don't really have the future in our heads. We're just working on what we can work on. So to answer that question, no, there's no plan.
Don't forget, OpenOSRS is also an open source client, so anyone in this channel can also develop for OpenOSRS if they make a pull request or something like that as well. It's just not the developer's client, everyone's client. So as Jagex may try and defeat us, or if that ever happens in the future, then people can make forks, people can do their own client if they really want to. But I think we would always be around even if Jagex tries to silence us. But like OP said, I doubt that would happen.
Yeah.
So there's an inherent sustainability.
Yes, by us being open source.
Yeah, that's the beauty of open source, and it's not something that we're like, yeah, well, if Jagex tells us to close down, everybody quickly make a fork, make your own client, blah blah. No, that's not the message at all. It's more like this is what open source is. It's like you can create, you can adapt, and we have our licensing is made in that manner where you can add to, remove, create, and that's what development at its core. That's how things progress. So, yeah, that's basically the gist of it. All right, so that's all the questions I have time for today. I really appreciate everybody who took the time to come in and ask their questions, and hopefully we cleared some stuff up. I know it's going to be rough. These, even if I don't want the questions to be about compliance, I know they're going to be. I know it's like a very interesting or sore topic. So I will say that we are doing our best, and we will continue to do our best, and we want everybody to have their opinions be heard so that we can create a community-driven client. So that's kind of what our goals are. So I really appreciate everybody, and I'll talk to you guys later.
I love you, OP.
Thanks for having us and hosting this.
Of course. Talk to you guys later.
All right, later.